The book of Acts picks up where Jesus has left off. So Jesus' ministry was preaching the gospel to the Jews in order to identify himself as the Messiah, for him to do the work of salvation in order to transition mankind out of this dichotomy of Jews versus everyone else. This change would bring about those who are part of the people of God by being baptized into the church, by being baptized into the name of the Trinity, having nothing to do with being Jewish or part of the sacrificial system under Mosaic law. When the day of Pentecost arrived, they were all together in one place, and suddenly there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. And divided tongues as of fire appeared to them, and rested on each one of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak in other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. And at this sound the multitude came together, and they were bewildered, because each one was hearing them speak in his own language. And they were amazed and astonished, saying, Are not all these who are speaking Galileans? And how is it that we hear, each of us in his own native language? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and residents of Mesopotamia, Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes, Cretans and Arabs. We hear them telling in our own tongues the mighty works of God. So, the celebration of Pentecost was originally a Jewish holiday, and Jews from all over the known world would come up to Jerusalem in order to celebrate this holy day. And with this influx of people from all over the known world, the Holy Spirit descended upon the church, the early church, and moved them, filled them, to begin speaking in all these different languages of these people that had come from all over the place. They were speaking, as the last verse tells us, the mighty works of God. So the idea of Pentecost is showing two things particularly. First, no longer is being part of the people of God about being Jewish. It's not about being part of the sacrificial system as was taking place in the temple in Jerusalem. The second thing is that what took place at Pentecost was what was a reversal of the Tower of Babel. So originally, way back, part of the original mandate that God gave to mankind was to spread out and populate the earth. But mankind in his rebellion gathered all together and stayed in one place on the plains of Shinar, and began building this tower of Babel in order to replicate what they had lost on the Garden of Eden. So when you read about where the Garden of Eden is at, roughly, there was 4 rivers that flowed from it, which means that the Garden of Eden was on a mountain. So the Tower of Babel then was an attempt to get back, ascend up closer to God, and try to restore by their own means that relationship. But God came down, confused their tongue, which is more than just language, it's way of thinking as well. And basically this forced them to disperse, to spread out, because they couldn't understand one another. So by doing this, God was basically making them spread out and populate the earth. So with the incarnation and Jesus giving the Holy Spirit, the church basically reverses that and speaks the works of God in all known languages, which is showing that to be part of the people of God is not about ethnicity. It's not about the sacrificial system. It's about being part of the church. It's about living, believing, practicing, what the church has always believed and practiced. So originally the idea was people heard all these Galileans, which was kind of used as an insult, basically ignorant fishermen. Yet somehow all these ignorant fishermen were speaking all these different languages, which amazed everybody. And they heard the mighty works of God, as the last verse tells us. So the preaching of the gospel here basically set the groundwork for what the apostles in the first generation church would go on to do in the following decades. So this idea of Peter bringing the gospel to Rome is not, yes, he did do that, but he was not the first. We know that there was Romans in Jerusalem, people who were Jewish, and they heard the gospel, and all of these different places would have heard the gospel preached and would have taken that back with them, proclaiming that the Messiah had come and that a movement was happening in Jerusalem. So Pentecost, the celebration of Pentecost is very, very important, for it shows that the Jewish people are not the people of God any longer. They have rejected the Messiah. They are still hanging on to this idea of being Jewish as being important, as following the Mosaic law as being important, but none of those things are true. Instead, those who embrace Christ as the Messiah, those who look forward to being baptized and are baptized into the church, these are the people of God.